welcome to another installment of If It's in the Mind, It Can Be Managed, the Mind Management Mentors podcast. A podcast, as I always say, with three pillars of working on mindset and mental health, workplace wellness, and helping people or helping coaches go on that journey of coaching and the tools that they need to make it successful. And today we've got an extremely special guest who I have met at a networking event. I've done many a podcast about why networking is really helpful and beneficial. But once we met, Rachel, I knew that we were going to be able to cement a firm relationship, if you like.
Yes, indeed.
So, as if you were on blind date, tell us what's your name, what do you do, where you from?
Oh, I love that. Cuddy, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Rachel Haynes and I run a wonderful business called Fulcio. I will pause there to explain that Fulcio is
I love it.
Latin.
The way you pronounce it, I know what I'm thinking. I know what everyone else is thinking, but carry on.
It's Latin for strengthen, serve, and support. And you can thank my husband for that one. He's the wordsmith in our family. It derived from I'm a time served ops manager or ops director, depending on what end of my career you go to. So the name derived from, he said, if you were to describe yourself in a business, we were naming the business, he says, how would you describe yourself? And I said, I'm a linchpin. That's basically what ops is. It's the linchpin in any business. And of course, he went away and thought about it for a while, and he came back and he went, oh, what about fulcrum? I went, I think that one's taken, love. So no, there we landed. He went full circle, did a second draft, and came back with Fulcio, as the Latin goes.
It just makes me laugh because I pronounce it. The Spell it for me before
F
we go any further. Spell it.
Fulcio.
Fulcio. I
Yes.
just can't help hear what everybody else is hearing, which is fuckio. To be when you do it in your it's Italian, isn't it?
It's Latin.
It's Latin. It's Latin. Fulcio. Right. Okay. You are allowed to swear on this podcast, by the way.
Oh,
We'll
goodness.
not digress because you are a very prim and proper lady from the time that we met. So you
Oh,
don't actually have
hello.
to swear, but just allow yourself to have that carte blanche on making a difference. So,
Thank you.
the reason I wanted to chat to you because I go on this journey of learning how different cultures find their place in the world, and even though we did a little bit of a prep before we said do you niche, but I thought operation I'd never really heard of that because that's quite a big title for you to go into another business and say I can help you go from this to this. So
Certainly.
what does the operations, because it's change management as well, isn't it?
It can be. So the way I look at operations, and you're right, it is a hard one to describe to people because, and this is why, when people say, oh, give me a 1 minute elevator pitch, it's super tough because it depends. For every business that you go into, to have the operations hat on, it can be different for every single business. But most of the pillars are the same. So things that I help my clients with can be from HR to IT and comms to finance management to budget and planning, stakeholder engagement, strategy, implementation of strategy, as well as the creation thereof. So it's a whole great big broad. If you think about it, like the bosses I worked with in my employed life were always the absolute ultimate experts of what they did, and more often than not, they would bring somebody like me in because they can be the expert, but they're not actually that necessarily expert in running a business, and doing it, to great practice and high standard. So they bring somebody like me in so that they can concentrate on being the genius and work in their genius space and their genius work, and I can do everything else. And that's basically what my business now does.
Wow. So it is a large, broad, yeah. So let's talk about your experience because your experience when you were talking about the jobs that you'd done before, I'm like, well, I can see how that would absolutely bring into that private industry of coaching, of which we're both in that space in different ways. Like you've got a lot of like skills, which is you bring into the table. So who did you work for before?
So long career. I left school with not an awful lot. I was a straight A student, but for various reasons decided to leave school and get a trade. So I started as a hairdresser. back in the day. Worked for the lovely George Patterson and latterly Charlie Miller for a little while. And then very quickly realized that my talents were actually with a computer in business doing my thing. So I won't take you through the entire CV, but the meaningful stuff, particularly in the last kind of 10, 15 years, I did a 5-year stretch in venture capital in life sciences, which was amazing. And I was their operations lead for, as I say, 5 years. I spent 2 years latterly in software as a service, in SaaS, in sound design technology, which was quite an incredible business as well. That was a challenge because that team was completely fully remote. It was the other side of COVID, but everybody lived everywhere. So that was all about motivating a team when they were all in different time zones and different places, and you only ever spoke to each other like this. Which is why this kind of sunny bubbliness that you see has to come across down the camera, because my line, particularly in that business, was always think of me as the lady at the end of the corridor who's got a door open, you can just pop your head in, but you've got to make people feel that, albeit 100% remote, and they might be in Athens or they might be in New York. So that was SaaS, venture. I worked for Pure Spa and Beauty for several years, leading projects and things with them. They were high growth. Most of the businesses I've worked with have been small and then growing very, very fast. Pure was definitely that. What else? What before Pure? I did a stint in the charitable sector in a lovely company, a lovely charity called Women On to Work, which I'm still very passionate about the work that they did. Sadly, it's no longer in existence, but it was an incredible charity. And then just prior to that, I spent a few years in executive search with the lovely Carlisle Associates, who, again, I still have a great affection for, and lovely to see them doing so well.
So there's some big names in there, some big names that I've never heard of, but that they are, I can see, I could definitely hear that they are big names.
Yeah, I mean, well, as I say, they are now. A lot of the places I worked in have had great success, and I love that when people ask me about my story, there's very few that I go, oh, I can't possibly talk about that. They're all thriving, which is why that charity one hurts so much, actually.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So a lot of people are going to be watching this is going to, right, what's the difference between a business coach and Rachel?
Mm.
So what is
E-
the difference?
Easy answer. I don't actually ticket myself as a coach. I ticket myself as a fixer. So, with no disrespect to any coaches out there, I love you all very, very much. My offering is a little bit different. I don't guide you to get there yourself. I come in and I help you get there by being practical, and I actually come into the business and fix stuff for you. If you want it that way, there's a couple of my clients who don't want it that way, who do just want me to be that 90-minute session where we just guide each other through whatever they've been doing for the week and hold them to account and come up with ideas for them. But most of my clients, I go into the business with a list of problems to solve. I work with the teams and I work with the leaders to marry the two together, fix problems, make them sustainable in terms of the change. So everybody knows why we've done it, what we've done, it's documented, blah, blah, blah. And then I step back and go forth and conquer. Give me a call when you've got the next one.
Nice, fantastic. Because I was when I was listening to what you do, and I'm like, this is different to business coaching,
Yeah.
completely different to business coaching. So when the big dog calls you in,
Yeah.
that kind of the visionary,
Mm-hmm.
the visionary's out there, but doesn't have the tactile skills or the know-how how to make it happen. So Rachel wears many hats, but Rachel's not a HR manager,
No.
but she has that skill.
It very much it feels like that to people on the inside sometimes, that I come in as a head of people, but it's not what I'm there to do. One of the things I do is help people in terms of HR, but I have to be very careful here as well because I'm not qualified in HR. I don't
Correct.
pretend to be. But culturally, I am a leader of people and people follow me. And I'm an authentic leader. I did a course with Oxford, the Saïd Business School, a couple of years ago, and identified actually what my leadership style was. And I am a galvanizer of followers. Just, come with me. This is me, heart on sleeve. It's going to be great. Sometimes it isn't going to be great, but I'm going to be there with you. So come with me anyway.
I
Um,
I like
that
that. Yeah.
that's it.
So if you were on the disc, where would you be on the disc?
Oh, remind me.
So you've got the D's, which are the drivers, you've got the I's, which are the inspirations, you've got the S, which are the strategic, and you've got the C, which are the contemplative. I might have said that wrong. That's pretty much the analytical. So I zone out when I'm talking to a C because I'm I. So I'm tits and teeth, ideas, and sugar and donuts.
Love
Right?
that. Yeah,
That
okay, got you.
yeah, that's me. I'll get everybody there, but I don't need a plan, which can be extremely infuriating for people that no, I need a plan and a step by step by step. And I'm like,
The process. Yeah, yeah,
no,
no, I hear you. There is a lot of that in me, I have to say, Cuddy. There is a lot of that in me, but it's underpinned with, but I can write you a rule book to go with it. Again,
yes,
so you might need to tell me actually, because a lot of what I do is that galvanizing of followers thing. People do follow me, and sometimes, honestly, honey, I am absolutely making it up as I go along. But
yeah.
that's small business. That's what you've got to do, and you've got to fake it to make it. People have to just go with it. Um, but what I am quite good at is then kind of pulling back and filling in the gaps and making sure that things are documented, possibly as an afterthought, but it depends what journey they're on. This is the thing. A lot of people don't need you to come in and write the employee handbook. They still need an employee handbook, but that's not going to add value to their business necessarily. Most of them want you to actually go. I'll give you an example, right? Two of the businesses I worked for they were at seed funding level. They'd had their seed funding, they'd spent it all. It was great. They'd got their product off the ground. They were going after that Series A funding, that next step. And they were going and going and going and going and going. And I came in and went, oh Lord, pause. Because if investors come in here, and they will come in here because they love the product's absolutely brilliant. But if you get to due diligence with any of these investors and they look under the hood, it's an absolute shambles. Please let me tidy it up first, because they're going to come in and ask you for a data room. It has to all be there. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that very quickly, but it's a lot of work to get it there. So that's usually one of my sells to people who are at that kind of stage in their journey. One CEO who I did work with, who was absolutely there, who, he was off in LA, he was talking to people, he was trying to raise that investment, he was doing a great, great job. But, as I say, I knew that when people came in, there was a lot of tidying up to do, and we had to do it really quickly.
I remember when you did your talk, you were like, especially when it comes, because I found that fascinating. I was like, wow, I don't even understand that world of investors and seed funding. And when you kind of talked, you said exactly what you've just said there is like, look, once they open up the car, the engine hood, they're going to want to see the pieces in place that allows the car to run and protect the asset of the money that they're investing. Because
100%.
there's in the world, there's 1,001 flowers and pretty pictures and all those kind of things, which really do sell a great picture. But investors go deeper than that, and they want to see that the mechanics and the strategies are in place so that their money is going to be well looked after. And that was your part, is putting the components together so that the machine keeps running. And I found that fascinating, Rachel, which is why I said, look, I find that really weird and I don't understand that world. And I think that would be a really good conversation for a podcast, for especially if like there's a coach watching this thinking, oh, well, I've got these skills that Rachel's got, but how is Rachel managing to go out into the world and create a job out of that? Because someone might watch this and go, oh, shit, that's what I do.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, without realizing it. The other thing I would come back to there is, as well as particularly for the investors, just one thing to think about is what you want is for them to be in love with the product and whatever it is that you're asking for investment in. And actually, what you want them to do is open the hood and go, aha, and walk away. Just, aha, it's exactly as I expected. You actually don't want them to open the hood and go, okay, and what about, and what about? What you want it to be so pristine that they just go, good, excellent, and move on and keep the conversation going. Yeah, the idea is not to have them in the engine.
Because the investors are smart people, a hell of a lot smarter than I am. I know that for a fact.
But the ones I have experienced are incredibly, incredibly, incredibly smart. And particularly when I worked in the life sciences industry, it was a very different beast as well in terms of the companies they're preparing for investment. Because actually, I say companies, they were so early stage, they didn't have companies forming. These were people who were doing their PhDs in Edinburgh, the northern universities in the north of England. And these guys are literally just talking about these experiments that they're doing in the lab. They haven't formed a company, they've never run a business. That's how early stage that investment was. And that was a very different beast. So all of our professionals who were going in and assessing those opportunities, they were PhDs in molecular biology and chemistry and all sorts of sciences. But this stuff that I'm talking about is much, much more, your practical businesses who have started at one stage are wanting to get to that next stage. And whether it's, seed to Series A investment, or whether it's that they've gone after some grant funding, if I can say it, some grant funding, and they've got key milestones that they've got to hit if they're successful in getting that funding. Those are the kind of things that, again, you say you can do it in the applications, but the actual practicality of the record keeping that goes with that, making someone on the inside that isn't the CEO, crucial, responsible for monitoring those progresses, and how you then give that back to the people who have given you the funding. It's a world that if you've never experienced it, you don't know what you don't know, to coin a phrase.
Which I can now, the more and more you talk, and I know that the light's flickering a little bit there as you're talking. I
Sorry.
now the value of what you do is building and building and building just through this podcast here. It's now for anyone watching this going, oh right, we need the bricks and mortar. It's kind of like the architect is drawing the pictures, Rachel's doing the bricks and mortar.
That is my entire career in a nutshell. Yeah. Which is also why when I was employed in X role, that role would then multiply to plus Y, plus a bit of Z, plus a bit of A and B, actually, because we hadn't thought about that. And again, as the octopus that I am, do you call yourself an octopus or a jack of all trades or a girl Friday, whatever it is? Again, these are all things that these experts, these PhDs or the engineers or the inventors or the visionaries, as you say, they don't care. They don't care. They just need it to work. And being able to come in and say, no, I don't know how to do that actually, but give me half an hour and I'm an expert. That's been useful.
I've got a fascinating question for you now, then.
Go on then.
If you can't answer it, it's fine. But actually, it's funny because I've got one of my friends back at a home down in Sheffield who watches the podcast,
Okay.
and I had somebody else on the podcast, Vickers, because I knew that he was watching the podcast, and I was like, this it'll be good to get you in front of him. And it's funny because he's this old school friend, and I know he's going to be watching this, going, "Oh, Cuddy's talking about me," but it's been such a nice getting back in contact with someone that I knew when I was like 9, 10 years old, up until about 15 years old, 16 years old, and we were just best mates. But I've got a feeling he's going to be watching this going, I might need a chat with Rachel. So, speaking to somebody who wants to take their business from 3 million to 50 million,
Mhm.
what do they need to have under the hood so that somebody comes along and goes, I want that from Rachel's perspective?
Okay.
What do they need under the hood?
Any context in terms of industry?
Steel,
Roughly?
selling steel.
Holy moly. Okay, big business. On the spot.
Cuddy's got friends, by the way. Who'd have thought?
As well. What do you need? Obviously, the first and foremost is you need to know your product. You need to know how it's going to market. You need to know, from an investor's point of view, you need to be able to articulate the story of how you are going to get it from where you are now with their money to where they get their return. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be scientifically analytical about that. Sometimes that helps, but you have to be able to articulate it with confidence. That's his job. In terms of what's under the hood, it sounds really formulaic, but when you get to that point where someone's going to write a check for 50 million quid, they are going to ask for what is called a data room. And that is literally a Bible of documentation that backs up what's going on in the business. People say everything's getting digital. Yes, it is, but you still need one of these things. And it might be in the cloud now, but it is a great big file that has lots of subsections, that has every element of your business documented. This is from your processes around how you contact suppliers, how you approve suppliers, what your carbon footprint is, how you deal with that throughout your supply chain. This will be really big for your friend in steel, down to what your bookkeeping processes are, how you hire staff, what your HR files look like, have you vetted everybody, has everyone got the right to work, data, how do you use customer data, how do you use supplier data, do you keep any customer data on site? If you do, where's your GDPR, how's it looking, how do you protect yourself? Cuddy, I could go on for hours, but it's a
Rachel, I
great
can
big
see
pile of
now,
stuff.
by the way, you're creating value, that Rachel. For I would class myself as quite a layman in certain things, and I didn't understand what you did, Rachel, and I think that's why we have these conversations because I'm a big believer in networking, and I know you are as well. But if I know what someone does and I can understand it in my small child brain, I know the fact that when I'm having a conversation with someone, because I know people speaking problems.
Yeah.
They don't ever speak in solutions. When you're having a conversation with someone, they're always going to tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
And what's been a massive benefit for me for over these years is like, I just need to know someone that solves that problem. If it's not me, then who? So that I, quite annoyingly to some people, don't just let them speak, say, I've got a solution for that. When I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I was
I
just
love it.
venting. Not a problem. You can vent as much as you like, but do you actually want an introduction to that person? So now that's exactly how I do networking, to be fair, Rachel. I was like, right, I just need to know what they do. Perfect. So that kind of sound, I get that completely. Bearing in mind, I don't have a scope of business that way, but yeah, that sounds, what that's done to everybody here is going, Rachel knows a shit.
Gosh, or she's at least memorized what a data room is. And that's only the thing is that's only one element. You know, there's lots of things that that come out of the work I do. I mean, you've just said it. People come to you and say, "Oh, this is what's happening. This is what's wrong in my business. Oh, this is giving me a headache." That's gold if you're people like us, because okay, as you say, you might not know exactly how to solve it, but you'll damn well know the person who can. And my network's getting to the point where I'm the same, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that part of my work because actually I'm just as excited to be able to phone our mutual friend Amanda on many occasions and
Correct.
say, guess what? I've got a client for you. Here are their details. Go forth and conquer. And I've got several partners in my network who I do that with, and I get just as much of a thrill about winning business for other people as I do for myself. That's how it works.
Absolutely. Do you know that's something that BNI is passionate about is look, the win is if everybody's winning, we're all right raising. And I'm a big believer in that. And a lot of people find that strange, especially why we got in contact. I know Amanda put us in together and I said, look, come on, because we can have these chats and these conversations. It's a shame, but that a lot of people don't get the power of abundance and
Mm.
helping other people go so that you'll be going with them. And
It's
I do, to be fair, Rachel, I do head down resentment lane sometimes, and I do get so I need to be open and honest with that. To be fair,
we're only human. We're only human.
and I have to that a toxic trait in me is like I fucking help that person. Why are they not helping me? I have that toxic trait, right? I'll be open.
But I tell you what, just as it's here, and it's not like me because I am not actually a big reader, but if you ever want a little read, I don't know if you've come across this one. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. His mantra that and it's resonated with me the whole time I've been in the business, is I grow, I expand every day in abundance, success, and love, whilst encouraging and inspiring everyone around me to do the same.
I
And
like
I
that.
think that's what we're talking about in terms of sharing that success. As you say, yes, of course, there's days when you're like, oh, wish I'd got that one. You're only human. But actually, if that's the mantra is if I'm doing well and I'm helping others do well, and that goes in full circle, we can all but be successful, for sure.
I completely touch on that. I said to one of my friends, "Kenny, what are you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking to make somebody £1 million in their business." Well, why? I went, because once they've got 1 million, I should get 1 million too. They went, why not focus on you first? I'm like, I know I probably should, but no, I think I really want to help somebody do this so that the universe will go,
There you
there we
go.
go. Absolutely.
You can do both for sure. There is more than
Absolutely.
that's another thing about Edinburgh, particularly. I know, we're talking about you
Yeah.
guys are over in Fife, but I'm often at networking things in Edinburgh. I often find people who, well, sometimes mistakenly thinking that they do the same as what I do and vice versa. And that's not, as we've just discovered, necessarily the same thing. But what I do believe is there's more than enough work to go around. There absolutely is.
To be honest, from my point of view, I don't think I've ever met anyone that does what you do.
Really?
Yeah. Because I was thinking while we're talking about this, I'm like, it's not what Vickers does because I've had a chat with Vickers. For anyone watching the podcast, like who's Vickers, check out another podcast. I know another business coach up in Perth, and I'm like, nope, it's not what he does. No, absolutely. I actually do think that what you do is quite nichey.
Mm.
I mean, you are literally the umbrella or the octopus
The octopus, the Girl Friday.
with that many arms, and that for some people they'll be like, that's not stone and steel for me. I need more of a, but I get what you do.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because so that's you were asking me about steel. Now, fess up, never worked in steel before, but I currently sit on the advisory board of an IT company based down south who supply IT hardware into the military is one of their and the defense contracts is one of their businesses. On the other hand, I've sat on the advisory board for Manchester Pride events. And then when you look at my employment history, okay, so there's venture capital, there's SaaS, there's the leisure industry, there's charitable, there's exec search. What's common in all of that, other than me, is all businesses need those basic fundamentals. And I don't believe when people are, for example, one of the guys I worked with he was funded by the uni, having come out and done his master's. And he was, as I said before, the expert in what he does. But what they didn't do at the end of the Masters, as well as cutting him a check for a couple of $100,000, was say, hey, here's a business 101, and here's how you structure a company. Here's best practice in terms of how to hire folk. Here's best practice in terms of how you handle people's data and keep things safe, blah, blah, blah. All of those columns, those things I mentioned earlier, they're the same in every business. They are all there. So that's how you can go from steel to doing people's nails to investing in life sciences to software as a system for sound engineers. It's just business.
I love it. I, I know that we're conscious of time, but I want to deep dive the life sciences because that must be quite.
Oof.
I know because you mentioned before we started the podcast when you're working with life sciences, they're doing something now that they're not going to see the results for 20 years. Now
Mm,
that's got to be a really weird business structure.
fascinating. So, and I worked on the side of we were fund managers, so we had a couple of funds under management at the time, and the guys who were our investment team and our partners in the business were all, as I mentioned earlier, they were all PhDs in molecular biology and science and all that good stuff. But what they were investing in were people in the universities who were coming up with concepts during their PhDs that might, in the future, cure cancer, cure diabetes, Alzheimer's, you name it. Which, when I was researching the job and going for the interview, was like, talk my language. This is business, but giving something back in the long term. Let's have a conversation about this. And it's still an amazing business. They do some amazing work. There's some really interesting technologies and developments going on out there. But these things were at concept level, literally an idea that a molecule mixed with another molecule might result in a reaction that could then be put in a drug in, let's be honest, probably 20 years' time that would end up making it to an actual person. But the money that is needed in the research at that early stage is essential. You just can't, but it does cost. There's no getting away from that in that sector. It costs a lot of money. And I know that sometimes the big drugs houses and things get a lot of bad press, and I'm not talking about that end. I'm not even
Yeah, I
going there.
know. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm literally talking to scientists in the unis who are going, and this particular organization had a great affinity with a lot of the universities, great relationships with the unis who were able to say, oh, you guys want to come and have a look at this because this. So that way you think of the mad scientist, something went bang in the lab, and they all went, oh yay, that, but
That's brilliant.
maybe not as exciting as that.
I know. So to wrap up, Why does somebody want to work with Rachel?
Okay, because I will help you solve it. Whatever it is, I will come in and give you a hand with it. It doesn't mean I'm going to be your VA. It doesn't mean I'm going to be your office manager. But if you are a CEO or a business leader or a head of department and you have a headache with regards to how you're going to grow your business from X to Y, or something we haven't really touched on, are you having problems in your team and you can't quite galvanize that support that I was talking about earlier? You're up there being the visionary, taking you guys off on the journey. You can see the horizon, but these guys over here can't. I'll help you plug that gap. One of the most powerful things that I do, which again, we haven't spent much time talking about, is I go in and work with teams. Now, that means that I have a full-on session with the CEO to understand what their issues are and map it out in terms of where they want to get to and the problems that I think I can solve. But the next four crucial conversations I have is four 45-minute sessions with each other member of the team to ask their opinion about what the problems are, where they're going, what the blockers are. And then the magic happens when I marry the two. And it takes a lot of careful conversation with the CEO to say, okay, but here's the crack. You think these are the really important things, but actually what we need to do first is actually address some of these things that your team are really struggling with that you can't see because they might not necessarily be the things that are driving you to that horizon, but we've got to sort these out first. And so in that respect, you're talking about inspiring better culture, helping people make clearer decisions. I talked about this a lot at the networking event. Where are those decision blockers? If it's all sitting with the CEO, that's not going to work. You have to find a way to change that and give some power to that mid-level. But also working with people on, it's silly, but workshop days and team building days just to help that fun culture come into work a little bit. Again, we're all doing a lot of this. I run workshops and team building days on digital platforms. But I did one only the other week with the National Trust Scotland. I went up to Bannockburn and we were running around fields and playing with Lego and doing all sorts of things, all relevant to the business and addressing issues in the business. But that's the other hat I wear, is actually coming in and motivating a team.
Yeah, I
That was a
love
long
it.
answer, wasn't it?
No, it's a good answer, and I know we're in the same. I know we're not in the same space. By the way, a lot of the stuff that you do is like, yeah, no, I wouldn't know that, which is always nice for me to learn. I think that the podcast and the conversations are great places for us to go. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was something that was possible. And for anybody watching this, they'd be like, oh, I kind of do something similar to Rachel, and wow, she's gone into the world and put a big girl pants on and she's living it, which is important because we need those success stories for other coaches to understand. So I do mindset and mental health.
Yeah,
I prefer to say emotional health, to be fair. I help people, give people the tools to understand their emotions, negative thinking, and I'm not a positive thinking guru in any way because I think you have to understand that not every day is going to be positive.
yeah,
Positive thinking's not going to pray away the trauma in any way whatsoever. You can sit there
no,
and go, I'm happy, I'm safe, I'm well. No, we need just this practices that we need to do help.
for
So I
sure.
think that's a fascinating conversation, Rachel. So well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Cuddy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking such an interest in what I do. It's been lovely to talk about it.
Is there anything else you want to share with the world before we say bye?
No, other than just if you're not sure, get in touch, ask. I haven't asked me anything section on the website that is just to pick up the phone, have 60 minutes with me just to shoot the breeze, ask you questions. Um, and there was something, but it's actually just popped out of my head. What was it now? It has it has gone. No,
Tell me how much the price of carrots are.
the price of carrots. I can get them for 19p a bag in Lidl.
Fantastic. What was the thing you were thinking about?
Oh,
What's the best way to bake a cake?
in an oven?
Okay, using what ingredients?
Oh, flour, caster sugar, eggs, butter. No, it's not there. I'll find it.
Okay. What
I'll
was it
find
you were
it.
thinking about? What was it you were thinking about?
It was something that oh, pointing people to my website. I did that one. I honestly,
I
that's
was
something.
trying to change the direction because the second you start thinking about something else,
It
that pops
should,
into
it
your
should
head.
come back. It should come back. Doesn't matter. There's a finicky brain for you.
I'll share something. I had a business meeting on Friday with a business that I'm working with because we're on retainer with a business for mind management coaching to help people manage their minds. And I was sat there, and she's like, "Couldn't you look like you've lost weight?" I said, "Oh, I've had to change my diet and stuff." And I said, I'm eating." And just as I sat there, I said, "Oh, I'm gluten free," but I said, "No, no, I'm eating." I said, "What am I eating?" And I could not think of the word. So for the rest of the meeting, she went, "Have you got it yet?" I went, "No." And it popped into my head on Sunday when I was speaking to her on Friday, and I went to the fridge and I was like, "Sauerkraut! I'm eating sauerkraut." Took me 2 days. I messaged her, FYI, sauerkraut. She went, "That's it. That's it."
You expect a WhatsApp from me when it comes back into my brain, okay? And we will report this on another episode. You can tell the audience that's what it was that Ray was trying to think of. Love it.
Rachel, thank you so much for being on the Mind Management Mentors podcast.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
We try to get conversations going because I'm going to say goodbye to everybody now. Thank you very much I think we're up to about 34,000 subscribers now of the podcast, and it's a massive thank you from us. We're building something and getting the message out about options and solutions, which is we can find ourselves stuck in the world sometimes, stuck in business, stuck in life, and it does play havoc on our mental health. And the Mind Management Mentors podcast is all about solutions. And that's what we do. And Rachel's full of them.
I've remembered what it was.
There it is.
There it is. You did it. Do you know what it was? Cuddy, you mentioned something about lifting people up who were in my position
Yeah.
when I was in my employed roles. I am in the midst of writing an online course for your mid-level office managers, PAs, ops managers who are trying, like I did for so many years, to break that glass ceiling and get just that bit further on in their career. It's coming. It's a 10-week course. It'll be online. That is what I meant to say, was there's something for those people who are watching this going, I do what she did. How do I? Please get in touch and join my mailing list because it's coming.
Perfect. And all those details will be in the description of the podcast. 34,000 subscribers. We're building, we're growing. A massive thank you to Rachel Haynes for being in the podcast. I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. If it's in the mind, it can be managed. If you're liking the content, like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and just get the word out there that this podcast is growing and it's giving coaches the space to be able to come and talk about their business. We're helping with the mindset and mental health in the workplace and creating a culture of happiness, which is exactly what I do. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much, Rachel. If it's in the mind, it can be managed. And as always, remember, big love from Cuddy, and we'll see you on the next episode.